Hello, and in this training video, we will walk through checking out a patient. Starting in your home dashboard, you will see a list of today's patients. You can select the In Progress tab to see which encounters have already been started. We are going to select the encounter name as it hyperlinks directly into the patient's encounter for whoever we want to check out. In this case, we're going to check out hydrangea petal, so we're going to select her comprehensive encounter. This will automatically open up the exam starting in the demographics workflow step. Within this screen in the top left, you want to just glance and find out your patient's age. So we can see hydrangea petal is 12 years old. The importance of verifying the age of the patient is you can assign a guarantor as needed. The guarantor is the person who is financially responsible for the account, not necessarily the policyholder of the insurance. Setting up a guarantor is beneficial for two reasons. When printing statements, it will print an entire family statement together, and when receiving a payment on a patient's account, it will populate the entire family's charges so that you can receive their payment for all the charges within one location. You do have to set a guarantor prior to creating the invoices for them to be linked. That is why we verified her age in the top left. Now, here in the demographics, I can find the guarantor field and change this to whoever's financially responsible for the account. Here, I'm going to select her father, Hops Petal, and I'm going to select my next button to save my change and move forward. Depending on your office's workflow, you may not want to look at your insurance within this screen. If you are entering copay information, you can look at this screen and it will give you some more information before heading into checkout. I do enter in all my copay information. Here before I go into checkout, I like to see that I have a primary vision of VSP and a primary medical of Blue Cross. I also know my patient has a $10 exam copay if it goes for vision and a $35 copay if it goes medically. I find this information useful. If you are not entering in copay information, you can hop down to checkout to keep going. Now that I have verified the copay, I'm going to head on into checkout as well. When selecting checkout, your first area will be your checkout tasks. This will list any checkout tasks that your provider has asked you to complete or to work on. In this case, it looks like our doctor has asked us to dispense trials to our patient. If this is part of my job description, I will come up on the left and go into contact lenses and contact lens trials. If you do create orders for your contact lens trials, you can select the Create Order option on the right. I just want to mark these as dispensed here in this column, so I'm going to single click the contact lens trial to open it. And on the last tab, which is Comments, is our dispensed option. I'm going to single click Dispensed on both the OS and the OD, and I'm going to put a little comment with my initials These comment boxes are not required. I do choose to add comments just so I know what happened, and I'm going to select Save in the lower right. Here I can see those comments and that they were dispensed. So now that I've finished that first task, I'm going to head back into the checkout workflow step. And on the far left, you'll see different checkboxes. I'm going to select the checkbox to show that I have dispensed those contacts and I have completed it. Selecting it has changed the status from active to complete, so I can move on to the next one. The next one is a contact lens booklet that the doctor would like for me to provide the patient. Just going to hand it to them across the desk and then check mark this one as well. Again, it looks like we usually have a 1-day CL replacement option. Like my other checkout tasks, if this is a piece of paper, I can directly hand it to them and select the check box. If this is something I need to work on, maybe this is an email that I need to send later, I can assign this directly to myself by clicking the Assign Task option. I can select a category, maybe in this case it's communication, and I want to email this to the patient. I'm going to put any additional notes, and then I'm going to assign this directly to myself from the list. and click Save and Close. So this means I can work on this email at a later time. Now I can check mark this as completed as well. Lastly is my recall. When you see RTC with the different information behind it, this means this is a recall the provider is giving to the patient. If you do not see a recall within this screen, you will need to manually create a recall for the patient. To manually create a recall, please see our knowledge base and FAQ and search for Create Recall. I would like to assign this recall to my receptionist. I'm going to select the Assign Task option again. I need to select the category. I'm going to select Scheduling. And this time, instead of picking a specific name, I'm going to assign this to the receptionists within the office and click Save and Close. So since I have sent this to my receptionist, I can also mark this as completed. You want to ensure you're completing or assigning out your checkout tasks as necessary. There is a report to assist in looking for uncompleted checkout tasks if you are not completing them or if you haven't completed them. Now that we have finished our checkout tasks, we're going to bill out the patient. I can click my Next button to move forward. This is our billing workflow step. Within the billing workflow step, there are two different areas. The first is your billable items on the left-hand side. These are the items that the doctor has coded within this coding workflow step. On the right-hand side is your available list of payers and invoices. You can see the patient's name. In this case, you can see the guarantor was set. You can see the insurances and their priorities, and if any other balances or invoices are already created for this encounter. Within our billable items, you have an unassigned tab and an assigned tab. Once we assign these codes to a specific payer, they will move from unassigned to assigned. You do not want to leave any charges in unassigned, as these are charges that were given to the patient directly from the doctor. I can see that these are going to go to the patient's VSP policy. I am going to automatically send this Optimap to the patient though. This doesn't have a CPT code, and I know the patient has already been educated that they will be financially responsible. So I can use this green button to the far right to select it and assign it to the patient. For these other three charges, I'm going to use the Select All button in the top left, and I can bulk assign these out as necessary. I can send them to the Blue Cross Primary Medical, the VSP Primary Vision, or directly to the patient. In this case, I'm going to assign them to the VSP. On the right-hand side, we have a pending invoice for VSP and a pending invoice for the patient. We know we're not done because the patient still owes that copay we saw earlier within the insurance screen. I'm going to select the VSP invoice number to open up the VSP invoice. I can select Transfer Items. I can select my transfer reason. These reasons pull from your admin area and are customizable to your practice, so yours may look different from mine. I'm going to select Coinsurance Copay. Because we already have a charge sent to that patient, this is defaulting to that pending patient invoice. If you do not have a pending patient invoice, it will default to a new invoice. So in this case, I would like to send a $10 exam copay from the insurance invoice to the patient. And I looked at their authorization and they are covered up to $75 on a fitting. So I'm going to transfer out $14 on their fitting to go to the patient to leave a $75 balance. Now that I've entered the copay amount and the overage on the fitting, I'm going to select Save in the lower right. That will reduce this invoice by those transfer amounts, and this invoice is good to go. I can either leave it as pending or I can authorize it in the top, and I'm going to close it in the top right. And now I can finish out the patient's invoice. Here I'm going to select the patient's invoice number to open up the invoice. I can give any discounts as needed by selecting discount items. And when I'm ready, I can select authorized. Changing the invoice to authorized will change my action buttons and I can select receive payment. The patient is paying me $73. Because the patient is paying this entire balance of their invoice, I can put $73 in the payment amount and apply in full. If the patient was making a partial payment and was not paying this balance in full, I would not select this option. I'm going to select the payment method that they're paying me with. In this case, it would be a credit card and a MasterCard. I can enter any reference information as I would like to, or anything in the comment box. These two are not required fields. And on the far left, I can select the invoice line. This will autofill my payment box, and I can simply click Apply Payments in the lower right. Now that my payment has been applied in full to the invoice, I see that this is a paid invoice right here with the invoice status. And on the far right, I can select the Print Invoice button. Here is the patient's line itemized invoice. It has the patient's name, hydrangea petal. It has the balances paid, which would be $10 on the exam, $14 on the fitting fee, and $49 on the Optimap. I can print this and provide it directly to my patient. Now that I'm done with this invoice, I can select Close in the top or bottom. And there's one last step to complete this patient in full. We're going to move down to the final checkout by selecting Next, or I can select Final Checkout in the bottom. Here I can select Complete Encounter. This is different from the provider signing the encounter. I can see that this encounter has not been signed by the provider, and that is okay. The provider can sign their encounters at any point. Completing the encounter is used to notate that the patient is no longer in the office or that you've finished the billing of the encounter. So I'm going to select Complete Encounter, and that will automatically close that encounter. When I come back to my home dashboard, I will now see that that encounter is no longer listed in progress and it has been fully completed. So this is a really good indication that that patient has checked out and is no longer here in the office, or that I've completed the billing on this. This concludes our video on patient checkout. Please remember to use our knowledge base and contact us for additional assistance.